All right, thank you, and welcome tonight to Hannity. 1 year ago tonight, President Biden assured this country, every American, that if they get vaccinated and they get their booster, they're not going to get COVID. You won't get it. Now the double vaxxed, double boosted President Biden has just tested positive for COVID-19. I guess so much for Joe Biden and Dr. Fauci's science. Now, of course, we do very sincerely wish the 79-year-old commander-in-chief a very quick recovery. This is not a good disease. I've seen the worst of it. We wish him the best. Coming up, Dr. Ronnie Jackson, Dr. Nicole Saphier, they will join us with analysis. The great one, Mark Levin, is here tonight. But first, we begin with the January 6th committee, their big, dramatic, primetime grand finale playing out on Capitol Hill. Soon, the latest obsessive, partisan, anti-Trump smear will come to a pathetic end, at least for now. They'll probably try a few more hearings before it's all said and done. Unsurprisingly, they did not establish a criminal case or reveal new damning evidence against President Trump as they had promised that they would. A perfect example of people overpromising, not delivering. Kind of like the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. Remember, Adam Schiff said, oh, we've got all the evidence, and we're proving there was real collusion. The only one that was caught on tape colluding with a Russian prankster was Adam Schiff. What is the nature of the compromising materials? Compromising material, the picture, the naked Trump. Naked Trump. Did Vladimir see them? But, of course, naked pictures of Trump. Remember that one? That was Adam Schiff. Well, here's what the committee purposely omitted. They never bothered to inform the American people. We won't do a total rehash tonight. They didn't attempt to interview Speaker Pelosi. She's the person in charge of security at the Capitol. Chuck Schumer, the D.C. mayor, Mayor Bowser, who preemptively said she didn't want the guard, or the Capitol Police chief, who himself at first didn't want the guard, but then after a new assessment came in terms of security, reports he was begging for the National Guard for days. He should have been brought in. We should have listened to him. Why? So we can make sure this never happens again. It's really that simple. They only interviewed the House Sergeant-at-Arms behind closed doors. They will not release the full transcript to everyone. I think they should be transparent and release all the transcripts. Remember, these were the very key people who were ultimately in charge of security in and around the Capitol. They were all off limits, according to the chairman, Benny Thompson. Now, instead, the committee brought in some cases, hearsay witnesses, but only evidence that fit what we said from the beginning was their predetermined outcome in order, as always, to bash, smear, slander, besmirch Donald Trump yet again. Now, of course, the committee didn't attempt to corroborate some of these hearsay allegations with firsthand accounts or hard evidence. I wish they would. Country does have a right to know. For example, hearsay testimony was given that Donald Trump tried to commandeer the beast, as they call it, the limousine the president is in, as a hearsay witness claimed or not. Is it true or not? The Secret Service, according to the press reports, disputes the testimony. Why not call them in? Why not get signed affidavits under oath? For example, did Cassidy Hutchinson write in her own handwriting, as she testified to, a note to Mark Meadows, or did the president's attorney write it? They both claim to have written the same note. Pretty simple to ascertain. Bring in a handwriting expert, see which person's handwriting it is. Instead, the committee, they ended up playing a lot of sliced and diced videos. I think they should release them all, edited together to make Donald Trump look as bad as possible. They never played the part of the president's speech when he told supporters, many of you now will peacefully and patriotically march to the Capitol so your voices will be heard. They didn't play that part of the speech. They never made one mention of President Trump's meetings in the days leading up to January 6th, which we have discussed in detail before. No need to rehash it all. But there are questions about why Mayor Bowser wasn't called, Nancy Pelosi wasn't called, Chuck Schumer. We had testimony from some people that were saying his office had been given a serious threat assessment in the days leading up to the 6th. And again, what responsibility did they have to secure the Capitol? Take a look at your screen. A few days before the rally, Mayor Bowser even sent a preemptive letter rejecting National Guard assistance at the Capitol. Was there any threat assessment to back that up? Why did she do that? Why didn't they listen to the Capitol Police chief after a new assessment came out a couple of days leading up to the 6th? He was pleading for the National Guard. Or is this just blame Donald Trump? Nobody else has any blame, any responsibility in this. So the kangaroo court going on right now never tried to get answers to really important questions. Why are they important? They're important because we need to protect our institutions. They're important because we need to protect our elected officials. You know, committees like this need to be bipartisan for a reason. So this way we can learn from mistakes in the past and protect people in the future. But if your goal is political, if your goal is to smear one particular party or one particular person, in this case Donald Trump, one more time, you're not going to get the answers that will solve the problems that led up to this. That's why Republicans were not allowed to have a say on who could join the committee. In fact, every single member of the committee was a devout Trump hater who already voted to impeach Donald Trump. How credible is that? But we're supposed to accept that this is some kind of nonpartisan, very important, very historic hearing that deserves to be televised in full, night after night, day after day after day, when it's really just a cheap, selectively edited political ad. Again, release all the transcripts, release the videotapes. And let me be clear, because I said this on January 6th in real time on my radio show. I said it that night on this TV program. We must secure the Capitol. We've got to protect our institutions. We've got to protect every elected official, anybody that works in government. And frankly, we should be protecting every town and every city in this country. We need law and order, which is why we should also have a committee on the 574 riots in the summer of 2020. We'll get to that in a second. We need a better perimeter around the Capitol. You know, these are things that would have come out of a bipartisan committee. I would build fences. I would build walls. I would use cement barricades. You need a perimeter. And by the way, for any big event going on, any marching at the Capitol, you need National Guard support moving forward so that something like January 6th never happens again. Elected officials and institutions must always be protected. Riots are never okay. This riot, the summer of 2020, 574 riots, none of it's okay. It's not okay at the Capitol building. It's not okay in Kenosha, Wisconsin. It's not okay burning down police precincts in Minneapolis or attacking courthouses or places of business in Portland. There was no such thing as a summer of love, Chaz, Chop, autonomous zone that was safe. We know people that died in that zone. But Democrats seem to want to only pick and choose which riots they approve on based on whether they can politicize it. That's why there's absolutely no committee looking into the summer of 2020 rioting. Now, remember, one fake news CNN reporter referred to it. Look at the background. Look at what it says here. Mostly peaceful protests after a police shooting. The city is ablaze behind the reporter. Fiery but peaceful. That's one way to put it. Mostly peaceful? I don't think so. This was a nationwide wave of arson, of looting, of mayhem. Dozens of Americans were dead. Hundreds of businesses burned to the ground. Billions of property damage. Thousands of police officers pelted with rocks and bottles and Molotov cocktails and worse. Thousands injured. And, you know, where's the investigation into this? Not only did Kamala Harris not condemn these riots, but she selectively then promoted a bail fund to get violent agitators out of jail. In fact, she even praised their efforts, told everyone, you beware, you take note. They're not going to stop. They shouldn't stop. We're not going to stop. Really? Now she's vice president? What was she supporting? Take a look.
They're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that this isn't, they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
Okay, fair question or not? Where's the committee investigating her support, her comments of the riots, the insurrection in the summer of 2020? Sadly, Kamala is not the only Democrat who has called for political violence. Take a look for yourself.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about.
Would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
You got to be ready to take a punch. You got to be ready to throw a punch.
You get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Get up in the face of some Congress people.
It does you any good running away from Donald Trump. I think you need to go back and punch him in the face.
But Michelle says that, you know, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
They go low, we kick them. Now, Chuck Schumer directly threatening Gorsuch, Kavanaugh on the steps of the U.S. Supreme Court. You won't know what hit you. You will pay the price. Wow. Would a reasonable person tell you that Schumer's threat was worse than so many other statements, encouraging, like in the case of Donald Trump, to peacefully, patriotically march to the Capitol so your voices are heard? Recently, a man armed with a gun and a knife showed up at Justice Kavanaugh's front door with plans to assassinate him. There's no congressional hearing into Chuck Schumer. And think about it. Chuck Schumer called for justices who are appointed as a co-equal branch of government for life to, quote, pay the price. You won't know what hit you. You know, why we have laws on the books, 18 U.S.C. 1507, that prevent people from intimidating and harassing justices, court officers, jurists in their residences or at their place of work. And yet nobody talks about stopping the protesting in these neighborhoods where these Supreme Court justices live. There are no crocodile tears from Adam Kinzinger, no monotone lectures from Liz Cheney, no theatric from Fang Fang's boyfriend or the congenital liar, Adam Schiff. Ultimately, the American people see this for what it is, a one-sided political smear that does nothing to improve our lives, even security at the Capitol. I would set up a perimeter. Keep the Capitol safe. In the end, they're doing a huge disservice to our country. Everyone who genuinely rejects all violence and all rioting, they're doing a disservice to the country by not looking into the summer of 2020, preventing that from ever happening again, protecting police officers from being pelted with bricks, bottles, rocks, Molotov cocktails, protecting businesses from being burnt to the ground, police precincts being burnt to the ground. These are all things we can do to protect safety and security of every American so they can pursue happiness. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.